Theresa May survive without her key advisers, without a clear majority, and without the confidence of much of her party. With me is Owen Jones, the Guardian columnist and author, and Isabel Oakeshott, the political journalist and commentator. Welcome to you both. First question, can she survive?
Well, if she does, she has exposed what a weak and cowardly Prime Minister, so-called, she actually is. The idea of throwing her two advisers under the bus. She's the leader, she's the Prime Minister, she took the decisions, this is her campaign, she signs off every decision. She had a campaign which was launched on the basis of eliminating the main opposition party as a serious electoral force. That was literally the aim of the entire campaign. We saw a campaign littered with her dishonesty, her U-turns, a manifesto which fell apart. She signed off all those decisions. I think I have no time for Nick Timothy or Fiona Hill, and I'm sure they have their share of the blame. But the idea that the Prime Minister, the leader of the Conservative Party, can get away with saying, after, you know, this total humiliation she has suffered and the Conservative Party has suffered, that she can just pass on the blame to her two most loyal advisers, I think is a damning indictment of the Prime Minister she is.
But you're saying it's cowardly that she stays. Surely that's a brave thing to do in her weakened position.
Look, I'm not going to offer advice to a Conservative Party which is obviously in the midst of a terrible, terrible crisis. And, you know, having, as I've said, launched a campaign to destroy the main opposition party. But the fact is, you have to, if leadership partly is taking responsibility, and the idea that her two, because that's what this is all about, the two chairs, her two joint chairs of staff, chiefs of staff, are taking responsibility for her campaign, her calamitous election campaign, and you know, whatever, you know, the idea I have to have sympathy for two senior Conservative strategists is pitiful, but I do, because she is responsible, she's the Prime Minister, and the idea she's squatting down the road trying to get together a sordid deal with a party, the Democratic Unionist Party, which in the 18th century, the 17th century would have been regarded extreme as a bomb.
We have, by the way, seen Labour Prime Ministers squatting in number 10 as well. You may remember Gordon Brown doing that when there was there was a coalition. It took him quite some time.
It took him a few days.
Has she passed the buck, really, and they've been the fall guy, the advisors?
Do you know what? I suspect that Theresa May actually wants to resign, but I suspect that she feels that she has a duty to stay on for a bit. I personally don't think that her premiership is sustainable for anything more than a very short period. I'm going to agree with Owen that she is very badly damaged. The party
what sort of period are we talking about?
In a crisis. I think that she needs to hang on for a few weeks, probably. Certainly what I'm detecting from Tory MPs is the feeling that the autumn is about as long as she can hope to last. And clearly we're looking at another leadership contest. That is not ideal at a time when the clock is already ticking on Brexit. I suspect she feels if she left now, then we would be plunged immediately into a leadership crisis and the party would spend another 2 months navel-gazing when really we need to bed in and get Brexit underway. But it is a really bad situation. We're looking at least worst options here. I don't agree with Owen about her hanging her two aides out to dry. I'm sure that they were more than happy to take responsibility. I think there's a big question, though, over how she will manage to rule, as it were, without those key aides, because she is so dependent on them.
There was some speculation in the papers that the deal was basically this: if you stay, the advisors go.
Does that sound right? I'm
what might have
sure
happened?
That's absolutely right. There is not a Tory MP that I have spoken to who did not want to see the back of those two advisors. Can you imagine those two advisors attempting to manage Tory MPs with completely decimated authority? It just wasn't going to work.
But the advisors follow the lead of the Prime Minister.
Do you know, I don't often quote Margaret Thatcher, but I do believe she did say, advisors advise and leaders lead. She is responsible for her own calamitous premiership. She will go down in history on her own terms as the worst Prime Minister this country has had, because she's been forced to resign. She will be forced to resign in a very short period of time since she came to power. She had more political capital than any Prime Minister in British history. She started this campaign with a lead so phenomenal, people question whether Labour would survive. Now, obviously, I think the reason Labour did so well was because of her own vision and policies and agenda, but she's partly responsible. Now, if we can talk about the Democratic Unionist Party, because I do think people in Britain need to be just aware about what's about to hit them. A party in Northern Ireland, it's up to the Unionist community of Northern Ireland who they elect, but about 280,000 people voted for a party which, as I've said, in the 17th century, some people would regard as a little on the extreme side. They are anti-LGBT rights, the right of women to choose on the issue of abortion. Just quickly.
Neither of those two issues, Owen, at a time of Brexit, neither of those two issues on abortion and on LGBT rights, I do not see that this Parliament is about to revisit those two issues.
Well, I don't know, actually, that's not true.
We are where we are with the legislation on that. I would be amazed if we suddenly start debating abortion at this point. Isn't going to happen.
I would not be shocked if one of the terms was to reopen the debate and have a debate and have a vote on the right of abortion.
I would be absolutely flabbergasted, and I will tell you now, we can take a bet later, that is just not
on the issue of LGBT.
So it's not feasible that could form
any
part of negotiation.
Of course, can I just say, of course, there's every chance that a party militantly opposed to the right of abortion will include that as part of the deal. On the issue of LGBT rights,
they wouldn't get it through the
On the
Commons.
issue of LGBT rights, look, to be honest, I'm a gay man. We are now talking about a situation where a party which does not believe people like me should exist, which believes that I'm a mortal sinner, is going to have the government of this country over a barrel. They are climate change deniers. They believe it's all a myth, it's all a lie. That's a huge threat, of course, to this country. And
I mean, the views of the DUP
none of these things are savoury.
Well, they are part of the mix, though, aren't they? I mean, even Ruth Davidson.
Would you accept they're the most extreme party in the House of Commons?
Has sought assurances from Theresa May on the role of the DUP in terms of same-sex marriage.
Look, I don't agree with any of those things. I would actually personally be quite happy to reopen the debate about abortion, but that is just my personal view.
I think you're going to get your way. I think you'll get your way.
I really don't think it'll happen. And even if we did, it would not go through the Commons. We have had multiple attempts. I have seen multiple attempts by backbenchers to revisit this. It's a sideshow, Owen.
My absolute fear. Can I just say? I think this is what the country now faces. Theresa May's authority is in tatters. She has no authority whatsoever. There is a hard right of the Conservative Party, which I think will regard her with utter contempt and believe that they can push their own agenda now, believing that the authority of their premiership, of the leader of their own party is in ruins, and they will make strategic alliances with the most extreme political party in the House of Commons, which the Conservative Party now depends on to get their legislative agenda through the House of Commons.
What do you think the alternative would be at this point? Would you want another general election?
I think in the next few months we'll have to have a general election.
I just don't think there's an appetite for that
among voters. There wasn't an appetite for this.
I think what the Conservative Party could do is to have a situation where instead of making any agreement with other parties, they put forward their legislation and ask the House of Commons to vote on that basis. You don't have to make an agreement with other parties.
We don't yet know the shape of any agreement, do we? So this is a bit premature. You know, they may well do things step by step.
If there is any formal agreement with the Democratic Unionist Party, then the government of this country will be held to ransom by an extremist party, which is opposed to LGBT rights, women's rights.
I just want to make one other point, which is a slightly surprising thing, that an alliance with the DUP was strongly considered in both the previous elections where the Tories thought they were going to get a minority or a hung parliament.
I wrote an article.
So this is not a unique Theresa May gimmick.
Just on that quickly, I wrote an article 2 years ago before the last general election, because we were all talking about the SNP, warning that the Tories would form an alliance with the Democrats.
That was the plan.
And just quickly, Theresa May described the DUP as her natural allies. Let those words be hung around her neck.
We'll have to come back to you to gaze into your crystal ball again for us another time, because we have run out of time now. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you very much for coming in.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.